guys, how's it going? Stout Man coming back at you, and today I'm going to talk your ear off, rather, about another Twilight Time release. In fact, you've seen right up there, you probably already know what it is. But yes, this is another Twilight Time release, which means it's another product that I had to pay $30 just to get on Blu-ray. But it was worth it because I am like 99% sure that no other studio is going to release this because it's been forgotten by time and most people don't like it. The critics just royally shat on it, but I still like it a lot better than the original. So let's just go ahead and talk about it, shall we? I picked up The Vanishing here on Blu-ray. This is the American remake. And so we are on the same page here. Yes, it's an American remake of a movie that was done in another country by the same director. The same director was brought on board to direct the American remake. So he did the same movie twice, essentially. Slightly different way for American audiences. And the ending is, well, it's significantly different, but in a way that I actually kind of like. And I know people frown upon this kind of thing, and it's kind of an Americanization of it, but for whatever reason, I like this movie better. It might have everything to do with nostalgia, alright? I'm willing to admit it might have everything to do with the fact that it was one of the earliest, like, truly freaky, psychological horror kind of thriller kind of movies that I ever saw. I mean, without this, I probably wouldn't have, gotten interested in the kind of movies like that Hitchcock does and whatnot, because this is one of the first ones I ever saw that was like that. So yeah, I really like this movie, so obviously that's why I picked it up, and I didn't want to wait on it because it's one of those that it's got like a 3,000 print run. So I'd been waiting on it for a few months, and I knew, if I keep waiting on this and waiting on this and waiting on this, there's every opportunity, there's every chance that they're going to run out of stock on this one, and then I'll never be able to get my hands on it for less than $75 to $100. And who wants to pay $75 to $100 for this? I mean, I had to make that decision. I had to say, you know what? I'm going to get this before it goes out of print, just so that I can have it in my collection. And I'm glad I did, because in addition to being, a somewhat rare version that once it goes out of print will be worth something, it also came with this nice little booklet. Most of these, they don't come with much that's special. It's literally just like, well, we're doing you the favor of putting your favorite movie that nobody else likes on Blu-ray, so pay us big bucks and we'll give you the disc. That's typically what the Twilight Time releases are like in a lot of ways, which is why when you look at the special features, they don't really put much money into special features. They just give you the isolated score track and the theatrical trailer. Same here, same as usual. But I will say that it was very nice to see this booklet in here, even if it is somewhat sparse, as you can see, because it actually does provide a lot of relevant and important detail in the description here. Allow me to read you a few lines of this, alright? Right out of the gate, The Vanishing had the misfortune of being the American remake of a deliriously acclaimed Dutch-French thriller Spoorloos. Among the original film's fervent admirers was no less a light than Stanley Kubrick, who allegedly proclaimed the film better than his own The Shining. Not too surprisingly, critics came gunning for what was prejudged as a crass American reworking of a European masterpiece. They hit The Vanishing, and they hit it hard, focusing particularly on the new film's ending. Thus, they proclaimed, weakening the terrifyingly bleak, nihilistic perspective of the original. Many reviewers apparently took this personally as an affront to American audiences. The estimable Roger Ebert spoke for many when he wrote, "Are Europeans deserving of smart, cynical filmmaking, but Americans have to be approached on a more elementary level?" The irony here is that both films were directed by the same man, George Schleicher, and until that infamous last 20 minutes or so, follow more or less the same deeply creepy narrative path. Moreover, the critical setting for both movies, a roadside service area, is in many ways far more typical and thus more ominous in America than it could ever be in Europe, adding a dimension of discomfort that resonates with extra unease in the remake. In that all American setting, a place with which every Yank is routinely familiar, a lovely young woman, Diane, played by Sandra Bullock, haunting in a brief early appearance, vanishes without a trace, leaving her boyfriend, Jeff, played by Keith Sutherland, a tortured obsessive searching for years for his lost love. All the while, Diane's abductor, Barney Cousins, the ever astonishing Jeff Bridges, probably his creepiest role, I might add, waiting for the contact that will help complete his sociopathic experiment in pure evil. So, yes. I think what this is kind of getting at here, and I don't want to read the whole thing, mind you, because it would take a little bit too long, and obviously it's already delving into some spoiler territory, but the thing that they're trying to get at here is that it was somewhat unfairly shat upon. And I like the fact that they talk about in there how the setting in this movie, which is different than the setting in the original movie in a lot of ways, or at least it's more significant here. The setting is, as I said, more significant here. It's something that in America is going to be a lot creepier. It's going to be a lot more like, yeah, that sounds like something that could happen. Especially when you consider that it was made and produced and put out on the market in 1993 at a time when a lot of Americans, back then, I don't know how many of you remember this, but back then, you know, people were afraid of like freeway killings, and they were afraid of hitchhikers or hitchhikers getting killed and stuff like that. In my own neck of the wood in Spokane, we had this guy. I don't think it was the Green River Killer. It might have actually been, but there was a guy who I remember lived on the North Hill that they found all these dead bodies in his backyard, right? And like fucking crazy, right? So, I mean, there was a lot of creepy, crazy stuff happening at that time, especially with regards to people feeling very unsafe and not really trusting their neighbors that much and not really trusting strangers at all. The amount of unrest and distrust towards strangers at that time was freaking off the charts, right? And I'd say it's gotten even worse since then, but it's a lot different today than it was then. Our fears aren't necessarily placed in exactly the same place anymore. So when you consider like the kind of era that it came from and the place that the creepy stuff happens in this movie, it is absolutely a perfect setting. It is absolutely perfect for like touching on all the fears of an American populace, and that's what makes it work so well on that level for an American audience. I actually like the remake, and I'm not ashamed of it. You know, I think it's really great. I think that Jeff Bridges really shines in this. He does an amazing, phenomenal job in this. Kiefer Sutherland is probably one of the first things I ever saw him in, and same for Sandra Bullock, who also did, although, you know, not very big of a role, she did a pretty good job in that role as well. Absolutely love this for being one of those creepy thriller movies that is just absolutely phenomenal in a lot of ways. So, yes, people will say, but it's not as good as the original. It's not as good because it's a remake. Like, well, it's kind of hard to say that when it's literally the exact same movie, save for a few changes, made by the exact same director, just made for a different audience. Like, it's just different. Different doesn't necessarily mean worse or bad. I know that certain critics were very critical of it, as they said, because they felt like it was a dumbing down of the concept, but I don't know that it was. I think it was just taking the concept in a different direction. And sure, it was probably a studio executive saying, well, we have to have this kind of an ending instead of that kind of an ending because audiences won't accept that kind of an ending here. Like, Yeah, maybe that had something to do with it, but maybe that studio executive was onto something. I don't know. All I know is that I liked this movie and I wanted this movie, and yeah, I think it does its job very damn well. So, yeah. Anyways, I mean, it's easier to relate to something like that when it's something that you're seeing happening in your neck of the woods. So, if you're an American and you're watching a movie that's set in America and all this creepy stuff is happening in an American setting that you can recognize as being American, then or happening in the United States, then it hits you on a more you know personal level. It makes it feel more real to you, right? Whereas if you're seeing it happen in a different country that you're not familiar with, and among people and a culture that you're not familiar with, it's not really as hard hitting. It doesn't really hit you on the same level as it would if it was coming at you on your own level that you understood, right? So in this case, I think that the remake is, if not better, just as good as the original. There are arguments, I'm sure, that can be made that it's not as good, but I don't really care if it's as good. I just care that I like this movie. So, yeah, picked it up. Very happy to have it in my collection. Yeah, that means that I don't have to worry about paying $75 to $100 for it. I actually saw the DVD copy of this in what was it, a Salvation Army recently, but the Salvation Army here wanted me to pay like $5 for it, and I'm like, really? It's an old used DVD in bad condition. What, $5 for that? No. First of all, I can get it on Blu-ray. Second of all, that's way too much to pay for a used Blu-ray or used DVD. But I will say, if you can find the used DVD for cheap and you can't get your hands on this one because maybe it's out of print or something, by the time you're watching this, if you can't get your hands on this, the DVD should suffice. I'm sure it actually has special features that this does not, but whatever. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I didn't bother to look. All I know is that I have this movie in high definition, and that makes me happy. But DVD, you can upscale it. Maybe it won't look as good, but it'll suffice, and it'll be better than paying $50, $75 or more for it. Like this cost me $34 to bring home. Make mine $34. Like, for me, that's not too much to ask because I like it enough that I know I'm going to be watching it every year or two. So I want it in my collection. But if it's something that you're not really sure whether you like or not, because maybe you've never seen it before, or if you have seen it before and you know that you're not too much of a fan, but you would like to see it every now and then, but maybe just get a used copy of the DVD, which you can find randomly out there in the market, and call it a day. Whatever suits you. But I will say that if you want to get your hands on this, because it is a limited edition, limited to, let's see if I can get this there. There it is. There it is. Sorry. Limited edition of 3,000 units. Since it is a limited edition, you will want to make sure that you get your hands on it as quickly as possible while you can. You can get it on screenarchives.com. I don't make any money off of them, so I'm not trying to sell you on this because I get a percentage or something. Just go to Screen Archives and pick it up if you want it, because otherwise you're probably not going to get your hands on it ever. So, yeah. That being said, that'll do it for me today. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you later. Peace.